Here are 3 extraordinary ways hot yoga relieves tension and stress. And the first is obvious, it's the physical.
Is it that obvious?
Postures practiced in our style of yoga, which I refer to as hot yoga, which comes from Bishnagosh, the city of Calcutta, the state of Bengal, brought to the United States by Bikram Chowdhury, passed on to me in the Barkan method. One posture that Bikram does right away in his class is our version of half moon. I do it a little bit later on in the Barkan method hot yoga class. The half moon gets you into your side body and into the back bends. And then we go forward and hands to feet pose. But the point is, in the hot room, we're able to release the tension that's caused by tight muscles. Before we continue on, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Hit the like button if you're enjoying this video. Any questions, comments, or concerns, put them down below. I get to all the comments. In traditional modern exercise, even really, there's no such thing like running, calisthenics, weight training. And by the way, Bishnagosh's main prescription for keeping the body healthy was a combination of weight training and yogic asana. And to this day, I continue to weight train along with my yogic asana practice. But the key to the equation is incorporating yogic asana into your weight training program or into your running, because if you don't, the tight muscles are going to create tremendous tension and stress in the body. So in the hot room, in the yogic asana, especially in the postures that we do and the alignment concepts passed down by Bishnagosh, we're going to create a range of motion, which is going to give you a freedom of movement that's going to start to release this tension and stress forever. Now, another pose that's practiced in the Bikram and the Barkan world is eagle pose. And eagle pose is actually working to move all the joints in the body: shoulders, elbows, wrists, hips, knees, ankles, all at the same time. I consider it to be one of the most important warm-up poses that we do, because before we can stretch the muscle, we got to get rid of the tension that lays into the joints. The tension that's housed into the joints. It goes deep down into the core. So the eagle pose is an amazing pose to get rid of all that tension and stress. And another pose I'm just picking, not randomly, because it's one of my favorite poses to relieve a lot of tension in the body, and that's standing separate leg stretching. And in the Barkan method, I add an extended downward dog to start the pose. As we bring our arms out in front, we bring our hips back, we're stretching the lower back, we're stretching the backs of the legs, the hamstrings, and the shoulders. You got to pull the shoulders back away from your ears. What a wonderful way to get rid of the tension and the stress in the body. Separate leg stretching is a wonderful pose. A very common place to hold physical tension is the neck and the shoulders.
You can say that again.
So as we do these poses, like I said before in half moon or in separate leg stretching, extend those arms out in front. We're releasing all that tension in the body to get rid of all your tension and stress tenfold. And that's really a segue to extraordinary way number 2.
Mentally, guy, mentally.
And that's the mental or emotional. Because yes, we hold on to tension in our neck and our shoulders, and that's a very common area. But also, which is not so much commonly known, is we hold a lot of tension in our hips. Now, the ancients, the yogic rishis and gurus say that we can actually house traumatic experiences in the body. We can actually hold on to traumatic emotional tension in the body. As we start to move the body, we start to relieve that tension and stress, because sometimes it may not be physical. It may not be a physical imbalance in your body that's causing the tension and the stress. It could be something that's connected mentally and emotionally. As we get into our hot yoga routine, it's not just the physical, but the mental and emotional that's coming together. So that's why in the Barkan world, we do extra hip openers. In the Bikram world, you're going to open your hips in many poses like tree stand, eagle pose, wind removing pose, the front of the hip or the hip flexor. But in Barkan method hot yoga, I added a lot more hip openers to get deep into that, what I call the inner core spot. So after the standing poses are over, we're on our first Shavasana, which I consider to be such an important moment of the class. We'll talk about that later in the spiritual side, which is the third part. A little hint of what the third part is, but you probably already guessed it. The first pose we do in the Barkan method, in the hot yoga and the hot vinyasa class, and by the way, if you want to take class with me and you don't live in Fort Lauderdale, I have an on-demand membership. Look down in the link in the description below. If you happen to be in Fort Lauderdale, we're teaching Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. at Prana Hot Yoga on 17th Street and Federal Highway. Come and take class with us. The first floor pose that we do in the Barkan method series is called Supta Bhadrasana, which means reclining gentle. Bhadra was the goddess of the hunt, created by Shiva. Other styles of yoga called Baddhakonasana. Supta just means reclining. It's a great external rotation and opening of the hips. The hips are this massive area in the body, and a lot of times you're not going to feel the tension in your hips. You may feel it in your knees or your ankles, but the hips are the culprit. So there's different ways we can move the body. This way is what I call foot to knee pose 2. It's an internal rotation of the hips. We bring the knee into the center, stretching not just the side of the hip, but the IT band, and then the whole side body. It's also a great way to penetrate into where that real tension lies, into the deep inner core spot. And another Barkan method hot yoga hip opener that we added into the sequence is happy baby pose. We're pulling down on the feet. You want to think as you're pulling down on the feet, your heels are going to the ceiling in an opposite direction, which gets into the hips. You can sort of play with the angle to see where the tension is. Pull your knees down into that tension as you exhale and feel the release. So sometimes, like I said before, it may not be a physical tension that's stopping you from getting into the pose, but a mental or emotional tension, and that's something that hot yoga will help tremendously with. And the third extraordinary way that hot yoga releases tension and stress is in the spiritual note. Now, there's really no such thing as spiritual tension, but the spirit can be stuck. Maybe there's a spiritual blockage. But as we start to eliminate the tension physically, mentally, and emotionally, that's what helps to nourish the soul. So it's a result of relieving the tension physically, mentally, and emotionally to nourish the soul. In my 44-year career, I found that many, not everyone, but many people, or maybe most people that come into the yogic asana class, the hot yoga room, are not coming for a spiritual revolution, are not coming for a spiritual awakening. A lot of times they come in for the physical or the mental. However, the foundation of hatha yoga, which is the type of yoga that we teach, hot yoga, Bikram, Barkan, vinyasa, any type of forceful movement, that's actually what the word hatha means, is forceful. I did a yoga video once on hatha yoga. Check it out after you watch this one, because it's definitely something that's misinterpreted in the West. But the original intention of hatha yoga that was created by Matsyendra and Goraksha, mostly Goraksha, was a spiritual intention. It wasn't so that we can straighten our leg in the standing bow, which just gives me another excuse to post my picture. The reason why they chose the word forceful is to forcefully awaken an energy that lays dormant at the lower spine in most people. And as we forcefully, through pranayama, through asana, through our intention, to awaken that energy, it's really the pranic energy that awakens, and out of the pranic energy comes what's called the Kundalini Shakti. As the Kundalini Shakti awakens up the spine, it starts to help eliminate all that physical, emotional, mental blockages in the spine or in the chakras, which then helps to create a spiritual awakening. This was Goraksha's intention in creating hatha yoga. Only about 100, 125 years ago, we then took on the practice of hatha yoga to the yogic asana, took on a very physical practice where we're helping to keep our body in shape, keep our body healthy, to relieve the physical, mental stress. But once again, the spiritual intention was the original intention that Goraksha had in mind in creating the science of hatha yoga, to awaken the Kundalini Shakti up the center channel, or the Sushumna we call it, the Sushumna Nadi, to get rid of the spiritual blockage. So that's our episode for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Hit the notification bell. Any questions, concerns, and comments, put them down below. I'm happy to get back to you, and I will see you at the next video. Bye, everyone.